Hello, I'm Dr. Greg Sadler, and I would like to welcome you as a student to this online Worldviews and Values course. This is a course that I originally developed for a college and taught online to a number of students in a successive set of iterations, improving the class, using their feedback each time. Students really enjoyed this quite a bit. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about the history of the class, what I'm going to be offering you in the class, how you might best make use of the resources that are being provided, and just give you a general overview about what you're going to find in this course. So, like I said, I taught this for a college. I developed this particular configuration of the course, and it was called Worldviews and Values. It was essentially an intro to philosophy class that was supposed to be for incoming professional studies students, people that had no background in philosophy and might not have the same level of interest, if you want to say that there's a lot there, as the regular freshman student. Most of these are transfer students or degree completion students, people who are working and who want to know what this sort of stuff is going to help them out with. And that's usually a tough sell for philosophy, isn't it? But I picked figures who were particularly interesting and had a lot to offer. Provided somebody put in a little bit of work into the course, they usually came away saying, wow, this stuff, I had no idea how relevant this is to my own life, even though some of this is 2,000 years old, some of it is 1,000 years old, some of it is 500 years old. I am so glad that I studied these philosophers. So this is a particular configuration of the course. Other people taught it in other ways. I thought that the best thing to do was to go straight to the well and introduce students to some of the great thinkers from antiquity, a little bit from the Middle Ages, early modernity, all the way up to the 20th century. So what I ended up doing was picking 9 key thinkers, and in some cases we read the whole of the text. In some cases we read just a portion, selections of it. So we started with Plato, and we started with parts of Plato's Republic. Then we looked at the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus. And instead of looking at the Enchiridion, I had some selections from the Discourses, which are a little bit more systematic and involved. Then we read somebody who, in a certain respect, is following in the footsteps of both Plato and Epictetus, and that is the early medieval Christian philosopher Boethius. With him, there's a little bit more getting added to the mix, but it's really quite interesting. Then we jumped far ahead. We really jumped, almost close to a millennium ahead to Rene Descartes, and we read the Discourse on Method. We looked at Thomas Hobbes and portions of Leviathan, and then we fast forwarded to Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Discourse on the Origins of Inequality. Then, to counterpose to Rousseau and to follow up on this theme of inequality that had been introduced by him, we looked at Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women. We then followed that by looking at Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx's collaborative Communist Manifesto, but also an earlier work by Karl Marx, Alienated or Estranged Labor. And we finished up by looking at Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail and the I Have a Dream speech. So, what are the general themes that tie all of these together? There's no one single key theme of philosophy that connects all of them, except for perhaps what is a human being? What is human nature? What are we like as human beings? But some of the big themes that run through everything are, how should society be organized? What is human society? What is a political community? Are we individuals first and then exist only in a social matrix that we construct? Or does that social matrix help to make us who and what we are? So what we would call issues of ethics and political philosophy or social philosophy are very central to this. Towards the end, we start thinking very much in terms of various forms of inequality, some of them rather systematic, like that of racism or sexism, classism, with these three last thinkers. Rousseau provides us a really great intro to all of that sort of stuff. Some other things that come up as well, though, are how do we know anything? How does the mind work? How can we distinguish what's true from what's false? Are our ideas, just because there are ideas, necessarily reliable, or do we have to develop some other way of getting at them? Can we rely on other people's methods, or do we have to generate a method of our own? Another key issue that comes up is, with the respect to the human being, but also other things as well, how do we work? Are we sort of like a mechanism, like a robot? Some people think our brains work that way, right? Thomas Hobbes certainly thought that way. Or are we something radically different? Do we have a soul or a spirit that's distinct from the human body? And if so, what does that mean for us? How do we deal with our emotions and our desires in relation to rationality? What does it mean to be rational? Those are key questions as well. There's also sort of a connection to the transcendent, to the universe itself, and to, in some of the cases of these people, to some conception of God, and also to what they called providence, the ordering of things. Is there room, if God or something else orders the universe, for us to still have something like free will? That is a important philosophical question. So all of these things come together in these great thinkers and their texts that I'm assigning here. And that's what you're going to be studying as you work through this course. We start with Plato and then move into Epictetus. Now, this is a course that you're taking not as part of a college curriculum, but on your own. I'm offering it exactly the same course with the one change that you're not going to complete assignments or anything like that, but you'd have quizzes that I didn't provide to the students before. But everything else is the same that I developed for my own students when they were taking this for credit. You're getting to take it for a much more manageable and, I think, equitable compensation than they did. What you get to do is work through it at your own pace. You can study as much of it as you like, or skip over parts that you don't think are particularly interesting. I think they're all interesting, or else I wouldn't have talked about them, but that's up to you. You can make whatever use of the resources you want to. You have access to this once you've actually bought into the class. You've got access to it for life. So if you want to go through the course multiple times, there's nothing preventing you from doing that. You can study one section each month and go through the entire year. That way you could do a binge, study of it and try to crank the whole thing out within a week. That's totally up to you. You're the student. All I do is provide you with what I believe to be high-quality educational resources arranged in a coherent order, and then I leave it to you as an adult to figure out what you want to do with it. So let me talk a little bit about those resources and what you might do. I think that nobody should not read the texts. I think it's very important, if you're going to study classic thinkers, you should never deprive yourself of the opportunity to study the things firsthand. You don't know whether your teacher is on track or not if you haven't actually read the Plato or the Epictetus or the Boethius. Now, the things that I develop are there to help you make your way into the text, to get more out of it, to have those moments where you're like, oh, that's what he's talking about. Or when you're in a perplexity, what the hell is he talking about? Oh, okay. Now I have a map that helps me get there, right? But I want you to use this as an occasion to read these people for the first time, or if you've already read those texts, to deepen your study of them and to get more and more out of them, because that's really key to what philosophy is about. Now that said, One of the big things that you're going to see is every one of these thinkers, I have either 5 or 6 videos. The first video, I'll be talking about things like the key themes or the genre or the historical context of the text, because I think those are important to keep in mind. And then the rest of the videos are focused specifically on one key idea or a distinction, or how things come together, sometimes an argument, sometimes the overall structure of the work. All of them set out in such a way as to try to help you make sense of what it is that you're studying. So all of that is very important. There's also handouts, and I think that you'll find the handouts useful, particularly if you're the kind of person who likes things in the form of charts. And that's the kind of person I am. I like to visualize these things, so I think that could be quite helpful for you. There's also lesson pages. These are the same lesson pages that I developed originally for my own students back, when I was teaching this class, in this particular setup for that college. I will also be giving you some other resources that I think are useful. We had discussion forums, and we still have discussion forums in this. You can post whatever you like in there, and people can respond to each other, and I'll weigh in every so often. It's one way we learn. But another thing that's quite important is I give you questions for reflection. These are things that often found their way into assignments that I gave to students. These are things that I had them write about. And you could do your own writing about it. You could just think about it. You could use these as conversation starters if you're doing something like a Socrates cafe, or you go up to random people on the bus and talk philosophy with them, or whatever it is that you want to do. These are questions designed to get you to think about the text. I'm also creating some quizzes that you can use to test your own knowledge, your own study, your own understanding. They're multiple choice, so they're not testing it at a very high level, but they at least keep you on track with it. And you can find out whether you're missing some things or catching on to the things within the text. I think that's quite enjoyable for many people. I'll also be providing you with links to, in the case of some of these thinkers, some of the other video resources that I've developed on them, if you want to do further study, and links to other online resources that you may find useful. Another thing that you're going to notice too is, if you want, you can go out and buy copies of the books, and I've put some links where you can find various translations of these books. But you can also just use the PDFs that I created, again, for my own students. I thought it was kind of a shame that they were spending so much money on tuition, and then I would, throw another $100 to $200 of buying books on top of them for things that we could easily put online. So I wanted it to keep it as cost effective as possible, and I've got all those PDFs linked to here in the course as well, so you can download them and read them on a screen or a tablet, whatever it is that you like. So if you are taking this course, I hope that you really enjoy it and that you get as much out of studying these texts as I do in going back over them and talking with other people and creating content about them. Every one of these thinkers is somebody who I don't necessarily agree with, but certainly respect as a thinker, and believe is very valuable to students to come in contact with. So these are the 9 thinkers who I picked for this particular class. I think I could always have done others, but these are well worth spending some time with. And if you don't necessarily agree with that right now, I think that after you've spent some more time with them, you'll probably have that sentiment. So enjoy the class, and I'm very happy to have you in here. Leave comments in the discussion forums. If you have particular questions about the course structure, or you want to ask me about some other things that seem a little bit off the wall, we've got discussion forums set up for those as well that you can use. So do what you like with the materials, enjoy yourself, let it lead to some intellectual growth and some enjoyment on your part.